The world in 1936, 36 years since the end of the Continental War and the founding of the alliances, was one imperceptibly different on the map. Though, life in those countries had changed immeasurably. Both alliances had managed to lift their constituent members up and out of the dearth, though their methods were wildly different. The Malta Accords Defense and Security Organization, MADSO, pursued a policy of economic integration called the North Sea Plan, the linchpin of which was the North Sea Zone. The plan included heavy investments from high-income countries to low-income ones, like from Italy to the Burgos Federation, free movement of qualified entrepreneurs and specialists of various fields between MADSO countries, a common alliance-wide bank known as Sovereignty International that each member country paid into at rates of roughly 10% of their income, a common currency printed and managed by that central bank known as the Occidental Dollar, a common armed forces known as the United Brigades made up of 10% of each member country's military force, and of course the North Sea Zone. The North Sea Zone referred to an economic agreement amongst the founding members of MADSO to establish a free trade program that would allow goods and services to flow between them completely unfettered. Initially, the North Sea Zone was wildly unpopular, as it gutted various industries in several countries, but once things settled down again, there were new industrial niches which proved more profitable and beneficial than the ones that they had lost. In this way, each country was playing to its strengths within the alliance. While Vannonian steel suffered in competition with Scandinavian steel, Scandinavian agriculture was annihilated by Italian agriculture, who in turn had their shipyard industry undercut by the Burgos Federation, so on and so forth. The North Sea Plan and the NSZ it created enabled every country in MADSO to have easy access to all the materials needed to rebuild after the Continental War, and access to fresh new markets, which were universal drivers of unprecedented growth. After nearly 40 years of this, literacy skyrocketed to 94%, life expectancy rose to 68, homelessness and even infant mortality plummeted. MADSO had emerged from the dearth, a recovery some would call miraculous, but so too did Quad C. The Cahors Collective Comradeship Coalition pursued its totalizing socioeconomic theory of Brodzikite Marxism, also called Brodzikism. First, the borders were universally closed, and offending bourgeois elements were rounded up for mass trials. Landlords, industry leaders, aristocrats, and clergy all tried for their various crimes against the working class. They were executed, given life sentences, and on rare occasion, put under permanent house arrest as attractions for the people to gawk at. But one and all had their resources liquidated and given to the central committees of their various communist parties, which in turn submitted certain portions of that collected wealth to the Central Communist Party, which was both the central committee of the Quad C and the ruling party of the PLC. Various other initiatives were pursued, namely those in industrial development, as well as universal housing, healthcare, employment, and various others. Private property was abolished, and the concept of private people was also abolished. All property was on loan from the commons, which the state administered, and all people technically were members of the extended military apparatus that Brodzikite Marxism saw as a model society, that apparatus being known as the Quad C Cadet Corps, or simply the People's Corps. These industrial and societal initiatives paid off almost immediately. Massive amounts of newly liquid funds allowed obvious problem areas to be immediately addressed, and quality of life shot up across the board, eventually reaching reported rates of 100% housing, 100% employment, and even 100% literacy. Yes, many buildings were packed with strangers, many jobs were bad fit for those working them, and many schools scarcely had enough teachers to function, but still, not one slept outside, not one was denied work, and not one was unable to read on at least a basic level. They rose out of the dearth a well-oiled machine, the people rejuvenated and throwing their lot into the glory of their revolutions and the greater coalition. Meanwhile, the non-aligned movement had a harder time of it, but did manage to lift itself up and out of the dearth, even if just barely. Nakarada and India, the two founding members, were able to dominate Indian Ocean trade by way of naval might and Nakarada's construction of the Suez Canal. With this wealth, they didn't think of their own prosperity first, but rather sought to entice others to commit to non-alignment. They found fleeting success, though found their primary success in reaching out to native populations in untouched regions and establishing so-called international nations. Prime examples of these are Terra Australis, Hyperborea, and Laurentia. They all followed the same pattern of development. Nakarada and Indian agents led diplomatic missions to still uncivilized groups like the Aborigines of Australia and the Yakut of Siberia, bringing them new governments and the materials for industrialization, establishing what were essentially guided colonies for the benefit of those that lived there, administered jointly by Nakarada and India, hoping to develop them as swiftly as possible so as to gain them as functional allies. These countries by 1936 were still being jointly administered, but by that point had somewhat functional civilian governments that had the power to make major decisions. These international nations were known for their sleek and characteristically simple flags set on gray fields. Other notable developments in the last 36 years included the reannexation of the South American slave states through the use of the United Brigades, reorganizing Vannin Brazil and Vannin Peru Bolivia into semi-autonomous colonial republics, while totally annexing Peru proper as a colony. Italy released Italian Libya in a similar fashion, reorganizing them into a colonial republic to ease tensions with the locals. Speaking of tensions on the world stage had begun to flare in a variety of ways and over a variety of flashpoints. Seeing as the world had emerged from the worst economic downturn in recorded history, the great alliances that ruled the day now had resources to victimize each other, and the ability to make the prospect of war seem profitable. Madso claimed the French and Alençon exclaves in the north were unlawful, while Quad C stated that they were not to be touched. The Grand Republic of China sought to access lands in Hyperborea for resource exploitation, which put them at odds with the non-aligned movement. The Balearic Islands proved a major thorn in the side of Madso, as they were the only bridge which connected Quad C to its communist ally in Africa, Mali. Later in January, the non-aligned nations made a bold play, reaching out to the isolationist island of Japan to see if they were interested in committing to non-alignment. The shogun of Japan, Yusaku Nozu, was a man which had been educating himself on the way of the world, and realized that Japan was ripe for invasion, especially from China, which was reaping the benefits of a partnership with the West. As a result, he demanded conditions. First, technological investment, imparting the latest advancements to the country of Japan. And second, that this commitment to non-alignment be made into an official military alliance. A conference was held in Delhi, India, where the existing members discussed such a possibility. Several representatives from the shogunate attended as well, demonstrating their value as an ally, namely what they had to bring to the table in terms of strategic prowess. As such, all voted yes, save for Hyperborea, and the Council of Sovereignty was founded. An unexpected third player which covered the rest of the globe. An operation was carried out soon thereafter where Vannin Brazil rebelled yet again, joining the Council of Sovereignty immediately upon declaring independence, backed up by the threat of war with Nakarada and the rest of the Council. Now, nearly the entire world was divided up into exclusive ideological camps. While a tenuous peace existed between them, it would surely not last very long. Something had to give, and give it would.